Hello, and welcome to the Vacay Podcast. Ryan Alford, your co-host. My partner, my co-host, Chris Hansen, is in Orlando today. I got G Vegas, South Carolina covered as always. We appreciate you joining for this episode where we talk about alternative wellness. We're trying to make alternative wellness the only alternative. And hey, this ranks up there with alternative choices. We've got Cameron Labar, also known as Cold Plunge Cam. What's up, Cam?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Hey, I like alliteration. I like names. I usually give people names, but you've created your own Cold Plunge Cam. It's hard not to go right at cold plunging when you start getting your name. Sometimes you want to have a show and we're going to build up to what it's going to be about. But we stripped that kind of out of it. But it is kind of becoming all the rage, isn't it?
Yeah. And going back to the name, that was a little bit of, a strategy piece as well, right? When it comes to search and marketing and whatever. Of when people would type something like that in. But yeah, big fan of alliteration over here and riding this wave of cold exposure that is becoming a lot more mainstream.
Yeah, it is. It's been hitting my radar. Chris is always on the forefront of all these things. And if I used to have to, before Chris and I, hooked up and became good friends and partners, I have to go find all these things, but now all I have to do is it fits my feed because Chris is he's on the forefront of every alternative trend and everything else. He's got all the supplements and everything else. And then, finding all of a lot of our amazing guests. So, but Cam, let's set the table for everyone. I know you've got a story of resilience and coming back and, where the cold plunge and that therapy kind of became, a solution for you with some other things you have going on. But let's talk about a little bit of your story.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I started cold plunging probably it was summer of 2021. So it's been, about 3 years or so. And I, from a young age, had a lot of diagnoses, just with different neurological conditions, Tourette syndrome, anxiety, OCD. Now, I have a therapist and psychiatrist telling me I probably have ADHD too, but I just don't want to admit it. So there's, from a young age, there's a lot of searching and a lot of root cause analysis and trying to recognize patterns and things like that. And when I moved up to Boise, Idaho a few years ago, I got hit with just a wave of depression that I was not experiencing, and was not expecting. And, there could be a few different reasons for that and we can get into it, but I was searching for anything to help. I was willing to do anything, willing to try anything. I've been on all sorts of medications. I tried fixing diet and exercise and trying different types of therapy, traditional talk therapy, EMDR therapy, some neurofeedback even. And finally I got to a point where one of my friends came out to visit and he saw how close I lived to the Boise River. And, I'm less than 100 yards, basically. I can walk out there, put my feet in the water in less than a minute, basically. And he was like, dude, do you ever go in the water? And I said, no, I'll go walk on the trail and stuff. And that's what most people do. Cause the water's cold. Even in the summer, the water's cold. It's 55. And he was like, dude, I would be in there every day. Have you heard of Wim Hof? Have you heard of Yes Theory, Seek Discomfort? These guys who have, who have messed around with cold exposure and spoken to Wim Hof. And I was like, no. And so we started watching some of those videos and that's kind of what started it. Was I had an outlet that was very convenient. So I'm fortunate in that sense to have a river that was, as clean as it was and as close by. But then I just went all in and I thought, let me try this out. Let me see what it's all about. And within those first few times of like taking an ice bath and then getting in the river, I like the 2 to 3 hours afterwards were feelings that I just couldn't even explain. Like the list of what I was feeling was just so long. It was calm and peaceful, yet energetic and focused. It was me wanting to just be kind to everybody and just being and feeling happy. And it just, it was something that would last for hours. And it was like every time it would last for hours. And so I just thought, well, I'm just going to stick with this, and see how much I can continue to help. And that's just kind of how the whole thing started.
Oh my God. I'm sitting here listening and I'm like, as I order, like
a cold plunge for the backyard.
Like, if they ever develop, like if Elon Musk gets, the chips in the brain where all you got to do is like think about something, and like Amazon is probably going to have it too, where you have to hit a button. It's like ordered. Like I was like ordering my cold plunge. Like this sounds like the greatest supplement of all time that I've never been able to find.
Yeah, it's wild. And I'm definitely not a doctor. I have to preface everything with that. But the amount of processes that our body goes through when it's subjected to cold is wild. The amount of things our body does to try and adapt to, to survive in certain situations. It's crazy. And we're just starting to learn about a lot of that science now.
So Cam, you strike me as someone that I can, mental health is nothing to fuck with. So, I mean, but have a little bit of fun, just being honest. So yeah. When I read your background and I heard you talk like about the Tourette's, I was a little concerned like that we were going to get some like F-bombs, like unexpected on the show. Like I was kind of hoping for it because I thought it might make for, but but in all jokes aside, but I did think I was like, like trying to brace myself a little bit. But talk to me about like what that was like for you, or was it those kind of outbursts? Like, and then like, I mean, you seem like 100% normal. Like, so
yeah.
Like, is cold plunging really like that powerful? Like,
yeah. So a few things to tackle there. First, the percentage of people with Tourette's who have coprolalia or, the vocal outbursts, the cursing, those types of things is closer to 10 to 15% of those people.
All right. That's more than I know. So I'm uneducated and ignorant.
And that's a big piece of awareness. I think I try to bring up all the time is most of my tics now are kind of motor tics where I'm shrugging my shoulders, my arms, my neck, stuff like that. And I don't quite experience them to the extent that I did growing up, which is also very common for folks with Tourette's, where the severity of the tics are usually in adolescence. And after about 18 or 19, they kind of start to subside. They're still there, and I still feel them on a daily basis. And for some folks with Tourette's, it's more extreme where it's prolonged through their whole life. But for me, I feel blessed because I was given that experience of trying to understand what types of environments, stressors, triggers would make my tics increase, go down, and what I could, the places I could be, all of those types of things. So it can be it's a long range of things that affect my tics. It's uncomfortable environments I'm not familiar with, loud noises, caffeine, video games, not enough sleep, traveling. I mean, it's all sorts of stuff. And so starting to recognize those types of patterns, I think, put me in a spot where I could start learning how to be more self-aware from a younger age. And that was a huge piece. Now with the cold, this is what's interesting. I actually think it's an adverse effect for my tics because of the adrenaline spike that you experience, like the norepinephrine, epinephrine increase from cold exposure. I feel like in the hours after my tics increase a little bit, but it is worth the trade-off of how it helps with my anxiety and depression every time, because it's like those things got so much better for me. It felt like this central nervous system reset, but sometimes my tics were a little bit higher. So I always like to kind of point that out, that it's not, it wasn't something that cured me at all from that.
Well, whatever it is, you speak eloquently, and I would have had no idea if I hadn't. So I think whether it's helping or hurting, I think stick with what you got. But maybe talk to us. I'd love to know. Like, let's get into the cold plunge thing. Like, it's a lot of people talking. You've talked about the benefits. You've made everyone listening order a cold plunge tub while you were talking, including me. Can I just put ice in my bathtub if I can fit in it? Like, I'd have to order a lot of ice, I guess. But is that even an option?
Yeah, definitely. And my affiliation, I love the ice barrel. That's the one I've been using for the last couple of years. One of my favorites. And there's a lot of options out there now, and there's lots of ways to get started. You can start with cold showers. That's a great proxy, I'd say, for a plunge itself. It's not exactly the same experience, but you're going to get a lot of the same types of physiological response and the increase in heart rate, breath rate, needing to learn how to bring that back under control. But yeah, and ice, a bathtub is great. A cold shower is great. I would recommend starting with that because that's what's most readily accessible to people. A hack I haven't quite mentioned yet that I want to, but I've seen around a few people posting about it is like, you stay at a hotel, go to the ice machine, just go grab a bunch of ice, right, and take it back to your hotel room and do it there too. Like, that's another
there you go. I like it. I like it. You got free ice right there. What's kind of the routine? So, like, how long, how often, like, are there protocols and things like that?
Yeah, there are protocols, and I think rule number one for me is listen to your body. It's all about listening to where you are. And I think it's more than just a safety thing. It's also a self-awareness thing, and learning how much you can control, how much you can handle, and what types of symptoms per se you start to notice as you go through something like that. The first thing to be aware of is the temperature of the water for people who are just learning or are experiencing it. Somewhere around 55 Fahrenheit, maybe even 60 is a good place to start. It's a little bit warmer. It probably isn't like a true ice bath necessarily, but 55 to 60 is a good starting point, especially for folks who, aren't quite sure how they're going to respond to that level of cold. You can work your way down in terms of time and duration of a cold plunge. I like to say anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes. And again, that's going to depend on the temperature of the water, who you are, kind of your condition, and giving yourself just enough time to get your breathing back under control and feel like you're present again, and you are in control, and your heart rate's down, your breathing's down, because that initial spike and all of those things, that's the biggest struggle. And just getting breath work down usually takes about a minute. And so if you can get yourself to 2 minutes to have all that back under control, that's a good starting point and a good place to be, to feel those endorphins after.
A minute to win it, Chris. That's all it is.
That's right, baby.
It's all we need.
And a minute's a long time. It's a long time. I mean, I see a lot of people in and out, which is still progress, right? But you're right, Cam. It's that initial shock and getting over that, like the fight or flight kicking in, where you're like, this is cold, this will kill me. And then breathing through it's a game changer.
Yeah. And there's some breath work that you can do beforehand. I mean, I tell people, take 5 to 10 deep breaths, feel like you're fully oxygenated and kind of like you have everything under control before you get in. If you aren't really prepared or kind of take a few deep breaths beforehand and you jump straight in, that's when you're really going to get that gasp. And so it's good to take a few deep breaths beforehand and just feel like you got the oxygen you need.
Does any of that choking have anything to do with, like, for the male anatomy?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know,
there's a certain,
yeah,
thing
people
that
say
happens.
the same thing, though,
Maybe
by the
it's
way.
like, it's all of us, like,
Yeah.
you jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave
The
that there.
contraction happens to us all.
Yeah, some of us. Chris, I know you're into this, so yeah, I know you probably got some questions for Cam.
Oh, I guess I asked him a lot of questions before we hit record, but
You got to ask him again, baby.
I mean, I was curious how we got into it, obviously, right? We talked about that. But maybe let's touch on what you mentioned today in one of your videos, which that doing it often is good, but maybe too often, maybe you could take a little breather now and then because it might not have as profound effects.
Yeah.
We can speak on that a little bit. Because I've experienced that as well.
Right. And because there is a level of adaptation. That's why the body is so incredible, right? We're just very resilient, very adaptable. And the cold plunging is very helpful. But like other forms of exercise, we get used to a certain pace or a certain cadence when we practice it. And so it depends on how you're using it, right? And what your schedule is like and all of that. But as I did 31 days this month in the river every day, I started to notice, the initial shock and the spike in heart rate and breath rate that I would normally experience. I probably wasn't getting to the same level as I did in the beginning. My body was expecting it or was a little bit more in tune with the cold temperatures. And so I think that was an interesting thing that I learned. And I think because of that, because I didn't have that shock in the beginning, I probably wasn't experiencing the same level of benefits that I would if it did really shock me. Because I think the adrenaline release is very tied to the dopamine release that comes later and the feel-good endorphins that come later. And so I think, and that's why when you see some of my videos, right, where it's just like the water's 35 degrees and I just kind of get in it like it's nothing. I hope those videos don't come off as me trying to just impress people, right? No. But it's more because I've just gotten so used to it. My headphone's cutting out. Why is that happening? Anyways, you guys still hear me, right?
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
Okay. And so, I know there's some protocols out there. I think Dr. Susanna Soberg has said that a good time to have is 11 minutes per week. And you can kind of spread that out how you'd like over the week, right? And so, I mean, for me, I'll probably continue to do it 4 days a week or so and kind of split up some time. I'll probably plunge longer than 11 minutes a week, honestly. But again, that's another thing to play around with.
Full head underwater or just body?
I put my full head under all the time. There's some people that say no, some people that say yes. I've always liked doing it. For people who are beginning, I'd say don't do it immediately right when you get in because you're not going to be used to that and you're going to want to breathe. And so if you do end up doing it, I would just say save it for a little bit later, maybe midway through at the end. But yeah, I put my head in all the time.
I splash the water and then I literally sit like this. And I think the warm air breathing in my hands there's a safety there for sure. Maybe I'm cheating. But I always comment on his videos. I don't think people understand it. When I get into a plunge tub, the water's not moving. My body's creating a heat barrier after 20, 30 seconds. He's in running water. There's no heat barrier forming. It's just constant freezing.
Flow of cold water.
Well, actually, last night I did a little makeshift plunge. We've got a sauna here. So I did the sauna and it's been like in the 50s at night. So I just hopped in our pool, which is probably like 60 degrees. And it's still like you said, it's better than nothing, but it definitely doesn't do justice to when you're in that 35, 40 degree. It's a whole nother ball game, man.
Yeah, because there is a thermal layer, like you're saying, when you're in more of a stationary ice bath, there's a thermal layer that starts to build up around your skin, right, to insulate you from the cold. That's just, one of the incredible things that your body kind of does. And in running water, it breaks that thermal layer, right? So it's just kind of this constant flow of cold water, and so it's a little bit more of a difficult experience because of that. But there's something about being out in nature and doing it there that's just irreplaceable, So I'll do that. I'll do that every time.
Cam, talked about some of your other like wellness routines that have come along with, this journey, and, maybe whether it's breath work or other things that you've layered on along with the cold plunging.
Yeah. So I've always been frequent at the gym, exercising, probably 5-6 days a week. I had been getting last year really good at sauna, and doing that more frequently. Big fan of sauna, especially in the evening. I feel like it helps me tremendously with sleep. My nutrition was probably one of the harder things for me to start to dial in a little bit more. There's some pride there and some thoughts of I don't want to believe that certain ingredients could be tied to how I feel or like how my mental health is even, right? Sure. I think for a long time, I didn't want to believe that, how a bag of chips could be contributing to, I don't know, my depression or something, right? I was like, come on, like, I don't even want to hear about that. But I think my nutrition is something that I am slowly becoming more conscious of and starting to reduce processed foods, eating more whole foods, getting a more balanced diet. That's been huge. And probably one of the biggest things I did in 2023 was get lab work done more routinely. And doing that through a company called Blokes. And they had reached out to me because I was struggling with, and I share it all the time, just struggling with the depression and the anxiety a ton. And I was beginning this process of tapering off of medication. And I was like, well, what else could be contributing to my mood right now? And Blokes had reached out, Joshua, the founder, and he said, dude, let's just get your labs done. Let's see where your blood work is. Let's see where your hormone levels are, and tackle things from there. And, come to find out, I'm 32. My testosterone was getting pretty low. My DHEA was getting low. And so a lot of things people don't realize a lot of times is your hormone levels contribute to your mood, right? And that's a huge factor. And that was something I wasn't really paying attention to a lot. And so that's a big part of my routine lately has been supplementing directly for those deficiencies that we found in my blood work. And it made a huge difference. It really did.
Yeah. If you aren't getting blood work now, I mean, if you're still trusting the outside, the exterior, and not really looking at the markers that your own body has and ways with which you can see what's going on, you're really behind. I mean, it's I don't care how old you are. And it's sometimes very revealing to a lot of issues, a lot of things, like when, you get with the right doctor and they can, analyze, everything that's going on with different things that are happening. It starts to correlate, go figure, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, checking under the hood, right, instead of doing guesswork and supplementing, from
kicking the tires.
Yeah.
Getting under the hood.
And the other thing too is doing it routinely, because doing the blood work just once every few years or so, right, it isn't really, blood work can be can shift pretty dramatically, even over a few days, depending on how your sleep is and other factors. And so I think getting it right now, I'm getting it every 6 months is a better cadence for really understanding how your body's doing.
100%. Chris, I know you get blood work, right?
Yeah, man. I was going to kind of touch on that. I think he's right on point. All of us, I know, agree with it. Get your freaking annual blood work at the very least, maybe even quarterly. I mean, we had, Dr. Joel, a buddy of ours, a longevity doctor, same thing, dude. Like, and I know when I had my blood work done and I had history of depression, history of anxiety, I had deficiencies as well that I'm supplementing, that game changer for me, where it almost seems foolish now to think we didn't regularly get our blood checked. They just, look at you and feel your ears and your knees and like, all right, you're good to go. The car's still driving. Not sure if it needs any new oil, but you're good to get out of here.
I mean, I probably went from ages 24 to 32 without getting anything done.
Most guys were horrible with going to the doctor, but now with, you said blokes, and I've seen you talk about them before, but these companies, it's so simple. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like you might, especially with the mental health stuff going on, I think none of us we don't think, it could be something that simple, right? Like your iron level is lower, vitamin D or testosterone, and I kind of, if you're open to talk about it, I would explore the journey from like the medications and getting on them and what kind of motivated you to think, okay, I want to do something different. Because I think even in my own life, I titrated off antidepressants. It's been a long time, but I venture to say there's so many people on it. And even people I speak to that are having, say, a rough time, their default is still, well, maybe I need to get on meds. And I don't like that that's the default. When did you kind of realize you needed to make a change? And how has that change been going, I guess?
Yeah. I agree with you in so many ways. I started Paxil when I was 9, and I have been on an SSRI ever since. And so I finally got to a point, like I said, I did the blood work. I was trying to find just what was contributing more to my mood and stuff. And that was like the final thing where I thought, I haven't even been questioning this. I've been on this for 23 years since I was a kid. And there was rationale for it when I was a kid. And, my parents will stand by that. And I'm fully support, because what it was like when I was a kid was that I was just like paralyzed with fear. And I couldn't get schoolwork done. And it was hard for me to follow directions, and it would just throw me into a spiral. And so that was why I needed it as a kid. And I do feel like it also tied in a little bit with my tics, with my Tourette's. And so I just got to a point though that I thought, I don't know what Cameron is like underneath without all this medication, right? I have no idea. It's been so long. A million different variables could have changed since I was a kid. And perhaps this could be something that's contributing to lower mood. I was on, I'd since switched over to Lexapro, and I was on, a higher dose of Lexapro. And I just thought, well, I'm going to start tapering off of this slowly and working my way down. And I've worked the dose, a little bit more than halfway down from the starting point, but it was just, I hadn't questioned it. And I think I'm getting more passionate about the process of tapering off a medication more than anything, because I am not vilifying or against it necessarily. I benefited from it for years, and I can admit that. I think it's important for everyone to understand their own body and their own circumstances, but the process in which we taper off of medication is is so, it's so cloudy. We're told so many different things, and most of what we're told, at least from what I've been seeing, is not how you should taper off a medication. It's too fast. It's cut your dose in half, go 2 weeks, cut your dose in half again, go 2 weeks, and then go to 0. And that is, I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a doctor whatsoever, but I'm getting more passionate about it because that is, in my opinion, a recipe for disaster. Depending on the person and the dose that they're at, the body needs way more time to adjust and deal with withdrawal symptoms than that. And it's not just like well, I'll get by, and I'll have the sweats for a little bit and then just kind of get over it. It's not anywhere close to that. I mean, it is putting people's lives in danger, right, when you go too fast. It really is. I kind of tangented from our conversation,
but I think that's a huge, because I had a fear coming off medications, but I also felt the same way as you, of like, who am I underneath this? So I think and that's part of what drew me in with you, is I feel like you're so vulnerable in speaking about this, but I think you're really helping empower other people. And especially if you have a fear of getting off these medications, kind of, you're in real time showing people that it's possible and that there's other ways to, I guess, minimize the uncomfortability.
Yeah. So. And I appreciate it. And I think where a lot of damage occurs is there's individuals like myself or like you, right, who had taken the medication, and you get a little bit frustrated and you think, I want to taper off of this, or I want to get off of it. And you start thinking, well, because I'm mad at it, I'm just going to go cold turkey, or I'm just going to remove it because I'm angry or I'm mad. And it's, I've done that countless times over the last 15 years where I was just like done, and it was always a disaster, always. And so I think it's important to educate, or at least raise awareness that when it comes to getting off the medication, if you're really mad at it and you want to do it successfully, it is a slow process, and time is your friend. And there are resources out there like compounding pharmacies that can make you incrementally smaller doses of medication with a prescription, so that you can taper much smoother and have a higher likelihood for success. But too many people have messaged me saying, I went cold turkey. It was the biggest nightmare of my life. Ended up going back on, and it's we need a little more education. Yeah.
I had that issue with gummy bears. I tried to cut them out. And let me just tell you, if you want to see an angry man, I started, where are my gummy bears? Dude, I like sugar, my food. Man. I'm sugar, man. I mean, I'm joking a bit, but it's more the craziness of sugar, man. Trying to cut sugar. Yeah. Like, it's probably the worst drug out there. Like,
for sure.
And Coke,
my nightstand is full of gummy bears and chocolate. If I'm being completely honest.
Exactly. But no, Cam, we really appreciate you coming on. Great on social media. Everybody can watch you jump in and freeze your balls off. Where can everybody keep up with you that is listening?
Yeah. Cold Plunge Cam is my Instagram, TikTok handle. That is the full extent of my content at the moment. I need to start branching out into other avenues, but
riches in the niches, baby.
Yeah, for now that's it. But
cool, man. Well, go check out Cam. Great follow on TikTok and Instagram. And hey, man, we really appreciate your transparency and really believe in what you're doing.
Appreciate it, guys.
Hey, for Chris Hansen in Orlando, I'm Ryan Alford. We'll see you next time on the Vacay Podcast.